Damon sat quietly inside the long silver spaceship, staring out at the dark stars. His team was heading toward the planet Kraska, known across the galaxy as a place of warriors. The planet was filled with strong, tall aliens, mostly women, who trained every day for battle. They were proud, powerful, and followed a code based on strength. Damon had heard stories that scared many soldiers. On Kraska, if you were weak, you were ignored. If you showed fear, you were challenged, and if you refused to fight, you might die. Damon was not afraid of battle. He had trained for years. He had fought in many places and survived things most people never would. But there was one thing he never did. He never hit women. It was a rule he had made when he was a child. A rule given to him by his mother. His mother had raised him alone on Earth. She taught him how to respect others, how to stay calm, and how to protect those who could not fight back. No matter how angry you are, she had told him, never raise your hand to a woman. That's not strength, that's shame. Damon never forgot those words, even when he became a soldier, even when he joined missions across the stars. Now he was being sent as part of a peace team to Kraska. Earth wanted a strong alliance with Kraska because of its powerful army and rich resources. But peace was not simple with warrior people. They believed that only the strong deserved to lead. They would not follow someone who avoided a challenge. Captain Rena, the leader of Damon's team, turned to him and spoke. You understand what we are walking into, right? Damon nodded. They may test us. They may push us to fight, but we go in peace, she said. I know, Damon replied, but peace may not be enough for them. The spaceship landed near the Kraskan Palace. The sky was red. The ground was black stone. Around them, hundreds of tall warriors stood in rows. Their armor shone in the light, and their eyes were cold and sharp. Each of them was over 7 feet tall. Some were even taller. Damon and his team stepped out slowly, showing open hands, no weapons. Then the doors of the palace opened. A giant woman walked out, taller than all the others. She wore golden armor and had long white hair. Her voice was loud, proud, and full of power. I am Vexa, Queen of Kraska, she said. Who among you will speak for Earth? Captain Rena stepped forward and gave a respectful bow. We bring words of peace, Queen Vexa. We come with friendship. Vexa looked at her, then turned her eyes to Damon. She pointed at him. This one. He is a fighter. Damon said nothing. He stayed calm. I can smell it. He holds back something, Vexa said. Step forward. Damon walked slowly toward her. He looked up. She stood nearly 2 heads taller than him. Her eyes searched his face like she was reading his soul. You have strength, but you hide it. Why? She asked. I follow a different path, Damon said. Vexa raised her hand. The guards around them moved forward and took Damon's team away. He tried to stop them, but they were too fast. Damon stood alone in front of the Queen. Your team is safe, she said, but their future depends on you. Damon's heart raced. He stayed silent, watching every movement. Vexa stepped closer. Kraska does not follow weak leaders. If you want peace, you must pass our test, one that shows your true power. Damon narrowed his eyes. What test? She smiled. Hit me, she said. Damon froze. Hit me with all your strength, right here, in front of all my warriors. If you do not, your team will remain in our prison. If you hit me weakly, you insult me, and you insult all of Kraska. Damon looked around. The warriors were watching. None of them blinked. I don't hit women, he said. Vexa tilted her head. Then you are already defeated. Your promise means nothing here. This is not about woman or man. This is about warrior and warrior. You stand in a place where strength is respect. Refuse, and you lose everything. Damon's chest felt tight. He thought of his mother. He thought of the promise. He thought of his team, now in prison because of him. Vexa turned and walked back toward the palace doors. "You have one night," she said. "At sunrise, the arena opens. You will hit me, or your team will never leave this planet." The guards took Damon to a cold stone room. There was no bed, no light, only silence. He sat on the floor holding his head in his hands. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to do. The rule he had lived by was breaking. If he followed it, his team would suffer. If he broke it, he would lose a piece of himself. He remembered his mother's words, but he also remembered her other lesson. Sometimes, to protect others, you must carry pain. Damon stayed awake the whole night, thinking. Outside, the fire of the Kraskan sky burned quietly. Somewhere in that palace, his team waited for him. Somewhere in the arena, Vexa waited for his answer, and Damon knew the morning would test more than just his strength. It would test who he really was. The sun rose over the red sky of Kraska. The fire-colored light covered the dark palace walls and reached inside the stone room where Damon sat alone. He had not slept all night. His mind was full of noise, but his body was still. He stood up, slowly stretched his arms, and looked up at the tiny window. Outside, the sky burned like it always did on Kraska. Inside his heart, the fire burned too. He had spent hours thinking about his rule, about his mother's voice, and about the lives of his team. Damon had been trained to face many enemies, but this was different. This was not a fight. It was a choice between his personal honor and the safety of others. The rule he had followed his whole life now stood in front of a wall of reality. This test was not just about a punch. It was about being accepted, being understood, being seen. There was a knock. The thick stone door opened, and a Kraskan guard entered. She was tall and strong, her armor made of black and silver metal. She said nothing, only motioned for Damon to follow. He stepped into the hallway and walked with slow steps. The palace halls were quiet, but every shadow held a pair of eyes. Warriors stood along the walls, silent and watchful. No one smiled. No one spoke. Damon walked with his head high, even as his thoughts swirled inside. The guard led him to a giant gate. Beyond it was the Kraskan arena. It was not like human arenas. This one was carved into black stone. Huge statues of past warrior queens stood around the edge. Each statue had its fist raised to the sky. Flames burned on tall metal towers, lighting the arena in gold and orange. Thousands of Kraskans stood in the high seats, shouting and beating their weapons together. They had come to witness something important. To them, a test of strength was a holy event. To Damon, it was something far more personal. Vexa stood in the center of the arena. She wore golden armor that glowed under the firelight. She was calm, proud, and still. In her hand, she held no weapon. Her long white hair moved gently in the wind. When Damon entered the arena, the crowd fell silent. He walked across the sand, his boots leaving prints behind him. Vexa watched him, her eyes unreadable. "You came," she said. "I gave my word," Damon replied. "You were given a night to choose. What have you decided?" she asked. Damon looked around. His team was sitting in a guarded section. Their hands were bound, but they were alive. Some looked at him with worry, others with hope. "I will do what must be done," Damon said. Vexa nodded once. "Good. Then we begin." She stepped back and raised her arms. "This is the human who chooses to face the trial of strength," she said, her voice reaching every corner of the arena. "Let him strike as one who seeks peace. If his blow is strong, he earns our respect. If his blow is weak, he earns nothing." The crowd shouted, repeating her words. They believed in strength. They believed in this test. Damon did not share their belief, but he knew what was at stake. Vexa faced him directly. She placed her feet apart and lifted her chin. "Strike me now," she said. "Show us the strength of your kind." Damon's heart beat loud in his chest. He stepped closer. He could feel the heat of the fire around him and the weight of every eye in the arena. He looked into Vexa's eyes and saw no fear, only readiness. He took a deep breath and remembered his training. Then he remembered something else, his mother's second lesson, the one he had almost forgotten. "There are times," she had said, "when protecting others means standing in fire." This was his fire. He tightened his fist, he stepped forward, and he punched. The hit landed on Vexa's chest plate with a sound like thunder. The crowd gasped. Vexa took a step back. Her eyes went wide for a moment. Then she smiled. She dropped to one knee and placed her fist on the ground. "This human holds true strength," she said. The crowd burst into cheers. They pounded the stone stands with their fists and weapons. Warriors lifted their hands high. Damon stood still, breathing hard, but not from the punch, from the weight he had just lifted from inside himself. Vexa stood and walked to him. "You honored the trial. You honored your kind, and you honored mine," she said. Damon said nothing. He looked to his team. Guards were already freeing them. "You did not strike to hurt," Vexa said, her voice low. "You struck to protect. That is a kind of strength our people have forgotten. Maybe that is why Earth and Kraska need each other." Damon nodded. "I didn't want to lose myself, but I couldn't lose my team either." "You have passed," she said. "But this trial was only the first. Not all on Kraska agree with peace. Some still want war." Damon frowned. "What do you mean?" "There are those who see your success as a threat," she said. "They will not remain silent." The celebration in the arena grew louder. Warriors cheered. But deep in Damon's chest, a new weight started to grow. He had passed the trial, but peace was not safe yet. Something darker waited beyond the cheers, and Damon would have to face it. The fire in the sky had started to fade when Damon returned to the guest hall with his team. His knuckles still felt the echo of the strike he had delivered to Vexa, the queen of Kraska. The sound of it still rang in his ears, just like the cheers. Of the Kraskan crowd, his teammates gathered around him as soon as the guards let them go. Captain Rena placed a hand on his shoulder. "You saved us," she said quietly. "We saw everything." Damon nodded but said nothing. His heart was still heavy, not because of the punch, but because he had crossed a line he had promised never to cross. Still, it had not been out of anger. It had been for survival and for peace. A tall Kraskan warrior entered the room. She had green skin, sharp eyes, and wore a chest plate carved with a symbol of fire. "You are called to the Great Hall," she said. "The Queen waits for you." Damon looked at his captain. She gave him a small nod. He followed the warrior out into the wide palace halls. As they walked, other Kraskans moved aside for him. Some gave him curious looks. Others gave short nods of respect. Damon had never seen warriors act like this toward an outsider, especially not on Kraska. The great hall was large and lit by torches along the walls. Vexa stood near a long table, her armor removed now. She wore a royal robe of dark red cloth. She looked even taller without her armor, but her face was softer now. "Come forward," she said. Damon stepped toward her. "Do you know what you did today?" she asked. "I followed your rules," he replied. "No," she said. "You did. More. You changed something. Not just in yourself. In them." She pointed toward the window, where the sound of cheering still echoed from the arena. "For many years, our people have believed in only one kind of strength," Vexa continued. "The kind that wins battles. But what you showed was another kind. You held back your hand all your life. That takes power. Yet today, you chose to break your rule for the sake of others. That takes courage. Damon did not speak. He wasn't sure what to say. Inside, he still felt unsure. Vexa walked closer. "Peace is not easy," she said. "Many of my people still do not trust your kind. Some even hate the idea of peace." "Then why allow me to fight in the arena?" Damon asked. "To show them that humans are not weak," she said. "To prove you can follow our ways when needed." "And you did." She offered him a metal cup. It held a drink made from crushed roots. Damon took it politely and drank. "I want you to stay for a few days," Vexa said. "Eat with my warriors, walk among them, let them know you." Damon raised an eyebrow. "Are you asking me to become one of them?" "I'm asking you to let them see who you are," Vexa replied. The next day, Damon joined the warrior circle. He sat beside fighters who once looked at him with suspicion. They shared food, stories, and old battle songs. Damon listened more than he spoke. Slowly, the wall between them began to crack. One warrior, a young fighter named Laro, asked him, "Was it hard for you to strike the queen?" "Yes," Damon said. "Very hard. But sometimes doing the right thing doesn't feel good. It just feels necessary." Laro nodded and looked thoughtful. "That is something we never hear in training." Damon began to understand the Kraskens better. They were not cruel. They were proud. Their culture had been shaped by wars, invasions, and loss. To survive, they had turned strength into a way of life. But now they were starting to see that strength could take other forms, too. One night, while Damon walked through the lower halls of the palace, he heard whispers. Two voices were speaking in the shadows. He stopped and listened. "They cheer for the human now," one voice said. "He has poisoned the queen's mind," said the other. "Soon, she will forget our true ways. Then we act, before it is too late." Damon stepped back into the shadows and stayed silent. He could not see the faces, but the words were clear. Not everyone was happy about his presence. Some still wanted war. Some were planning something. He returned to his quarters with a heavy mind. He told Captain Rena and the others what he had heard. "We need to stay alert," she said. "If they attack, we must be ready." "But we can't fight our way out," Damon said. "We need a different way." The next morning, Damon met Vexa again. "Some of your people plan to betray you," he told her. Her face stayed calm, but her eyes turned sharp. "I expected this," she said. "They have been quiet too long. Now they show their faces." "What will you do?" Damon asked. "I will call them out," she said, "in front of all, and I will ask them one question." "What question?" Vexa looked straight at Damon. "Do you fear change more than you fear the future?" Damon understood. A test had been given. He had passed. But the next test would not be his. It would be for all of Kraska, and the fight for peace had only just begun. The days that followed were quiet on the surface, but tension moved like smoke under the palace walls. Damon walked the halls with watchful eyes. He knew the danger was not over. His strike in the arena had opened a door to peace, but there were still those who wanted to shut it forever. Queen Vexa stood firm in her belief. She invited Damon and his team to a traditional gathering in the warrior circle. It was a place of stories, fire, and shared honor. For the first time, humans were allowed to sit among the Krasken warriors. This was not just a feast. It was a symbol. A new bond was being formed. The gathering was held under the open sky. A wide stone platform held burning torches. Around it, Krasken fighters sat on heavy stones, sharing meat, root drink, and stories from the past. Vexa sat at the highest point. She wore a simple robe, not her armor. She looked more like a guide than a ruler that night. Damon sat beside Laro, the young warrior who had asked him questions before. Laro had started to see Damon not just as a guest, but as someone worth learning from. Vexa raised a cup and spoke. "This gathering is not a victory," she said. "It is a beginning. We do not drink because we won a fight. We drink because we chose not to fight." The warriors nodded. Some still looked unsure, but none challenged her words. Then Vexa looked at Damon. "Stand," she said. Damon stood and looked at her with calm eyes. "You crossed a line in our arena," she said. "You passed our test. But now I ask you to cross another line, a line of trust." She reached into a stone bowl beside her and took out a small curved blade. It was no weapon of war. It was smooth, clean, and ceremonial. "Do you know what this is?" she asked. "No," Damon replied. "It is a bond blade," Vexa said, "used only for one purpose, to make a mark that says, 'You are part of us, not a servant, not a guest, a blood bond.'" Damon looked at the blade. He understood what it meant. If he accepted, he would become part of their honor code. He would carry the mark of Kraska forever. "You do not have to take it," Vexa said. "But if you do, our warriors will know that the bond is real." Damon reached forward without speaking. He held out his hand. The crowd grew silent. Vexa made a small cut on his palm. Then she made the same mark on her own. She pressed her hand against his. Their blood mixed for a moment and fell to the stone below. "This is not about blood alone," Vexa said. "It is about risk, trust, and strength beyond the fist." The warriors stood and raised their cups. They shouted a single word together. Brakar. It meant brother. One who fought beside you. One who would not turn away in battle or in peace. After the bond, the gathering turned warm. Music played. Warriors told loud stories and laughed without fear. Some asked questions about Earth. Others offered Damon their handmade blades or armor pieces as gifts of respect. Laro gave Damon a small stone charm shaped like a fist. "My sister carved it," he said. "We wear it in battle for courage. You should have one." Damon accepted it with care. Late into the night, Vexa sat beside him near the fire. "I watched you with them," she said. "You listened. You answered without pride. That is rare here." "I came as a soldier," Damon said, "but I stayed because of what I saw." "You saw more than most of my own people," Vexa replied. "That is why I worry." "Worry? About what?" Damon asked. "Peace is not won in the arena," she said. "It is won in the shadows, and lost just as fast." Damon nodded. He remembered the voices he had heard in the dark hallway. Rebels still moved behind the walls. People who believed peace made Kraska weak. "They will strike soon," Vexa said. "I feel it. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. But it will come." Damon looked into the fire. "Then let me help you find them." Vexa smiled slightly. "You are one of us now, and that is what worries them the most." The next morning, things seemed normal. Warriors trained in the yards. Markets opened near the palace gates. But a message came by midday. One of the royal guards had gone missing. Another was found unconscious near the North Tower. Vexa called Damon and his team together. "This is no accident," she said. "They are testing our watch. The next step may be an attack." Captain Rena looked at Damon. "You think they'll come for us?" she asked. "Not just us," Damon replied. "They'll come for Vexa. If they remove her, the peace ends." Rena stepped forward. "Then we stay close. We help protect her." Vexa shook her head. "I cannot hide. That would show fear." "Then don't hide," Damon said, "but let us walk beside you." She thought for a moment and then nodded. That evening, Vexa went to the open court for the speech she had planned. Hundreds of Kraskans gathered. Damon stood on her left, Captain Rena on her right. Their presence was a message. The bond was real. Vexa raised her hand and spoke with power. "We are warriors. We are proud. But pride without wisdom is a sword turned inward. This peace is not weakness. It is a test harder than any battle." Some in the crowd shouted back, "Kraska bows to no one." "We bow to no one," Vexa replied, "but we rise with those who honor strength and truth." Damon scanned the crowd. He noticed a tall figure moving through the edge of the court. The figure wore a cloak and moved too fast. Damon touched Vexa's arm. "Now," he whispered. The figure reached. Inside the cloak, Damon shouted and leapt forward. A sharp weapon flew through the air. He caught Vexa and pulled her down just before it struck. The crowd panicked. Guards ran. The figure disappeared into the shadows. Vexa stood and looked at Damon. "They move. Faster than I thought," she said. "But we're ready," Damon replied. The palace was alive with tension. After the attack in the court, the guards moved faster, and the walls seemed to close in tighter. Damon could feel the weight of the danger like a thick fog. He walked through the halls with his team, eyes sharp and ears alert. They knew the rebels would try again. They wanted war, not peace. Captain Rena gathered the team in a quiet room. The window was small, but enough to see the fiery sky outside. She looked serious. "We cannot wait for them to come," she said. "We need to find their leader and stop this before it gets worse." Damon nodded. "We need information," he said. "Someone close to the palace who knows the secret paths." One of the Kraskan guards, a young woman named Sela, stepped forward. "I know some tunnels beneath the palace," she said quietly. "They were used long ago for defense and escape. The rebels might be using them now." Vexa entered the room. She looked tired but determined. "Then we go there tonight," she said. "We end this." That night, Damon, Captain Rena, Vexa, and a small group of warriors, including Sela, moved quietly through the dark halls. The moonlight barely touched the stone floors. Every sound was a warning. Sela led them to a hidden door behind a heavy tapestry. She pushed it open and showed a narrow stairway leading down. The air grew colder and thicker as they descended. The walls were rough and damp. The silence pressed on them. At the bottom, they found a network of tunnels. The paths split in many directions. Damon's team spread out slowly, weapons ready but eyes searching. After a few minutes, Damon heard voices. He moved closer with two warriors. They came to a small chamber where a group of rebels met. The leader was a huge warrior, twice the size of most Kraskans. His skin was dark red and his eyes burned with anger. "This peace weakens us," the leader said. "Vexa is soft. She threatens our future. We will strike again soon, and no human or queen will stop us." Damon watched and listened. The rebels planned to attack the palace gates in 2 days. Their goal was clear: to remove Vexa and destroy. "The peace talks." Damon raised his hand and stepped out of the shadows. "Not if I stop you," he said. The leader turned sharply. His eyes locked on Damon. He roared and charged. Damon met him with calm strength. The fight was brutal. The rebels' heavy blows shook the ground. Damon dodged and used speed to strike. He aimed to weaken, not to hurt too much. This was a battle, to stop war, not start it. Vexa and the warriors joined the fight. Together they pushed back the rebels. The leader fell to his knees, beaten but alive. Damon looked at the leader and said, "Stop this fight. It only brings pain." The rebel spat on the ground but did not answer. Vexa stepped forward. "Your anger is real," she said, "but it blinds you. We can be stronger together. If you stop this now, there will be honor for you." The rebel looked at her, then at Damon. Slowly, he nodded. The group left the tunnels and returned to the palace. The danger was still there, but the immediate threat was over. In the following days, Damon and Vexa worked closely. They trained the warriors in new ways. Damon taught control, patience, and respect. The Kraskans learned quickly, but some old wounds were slow to heal. One evening, Damon sat with Captain Reyna and Sela in the war room. "We have slowed the rebels," Damon said. "But peace is fragile. We need more than strength." Reyna nodded. "We need trust," Sela added, "and hope." Damon looked out the window. The stars were quiet. The future was uncertain. But for the first time, he believed in the power of change. Vexa entered the room with a calm smile. "Your strength saved us," she said, "but your heart saved more." Damon smiled back. "Then let's keep fighting, not with fists alone, but with what makes us human." The fight for peace was not over, but Damon was ready to face it, with strength, courage, and a promise that no one would be left behind. The sun was just rising over the red horizon when Damon stood at the edge of the great arena again. This time, it was not a test against Queen Vexa. This time, he faced a different challenge. The rebel leader, Durek, was waiting for him in the center. Durek was a giant among Kraskan warriors. His muscles were thick like stone. His face was marked with scars from many battles. He wore heavy armor that looked like it had been forged in fire itself. The crowd was larger than before. Thousands of warriors, some loyal to the queen and some to the rebels, gathered to watch the fight. The air was thick with tension. This fight was more than just a battle. It was the final test, the one that would decide the future of Kraska. Vexa stood beside Damon. Her hand rested lightly on his shoulder. Her eyes were steady, full of trust. "Remember what you fight for," she said quietly. Damon nodded. He had trained for this moment. The lessons from his past fights, the strength he found in his promise, and the bond he made with the Kraskan people, all led him here. Durek growled and raised his heavy fist. The fight began. Damon moved quickly. He dodged the first blow and struck the giant's side. Durek laughed, but the sound was deep and dangerous. They circled each other, looking for openings. Damon knew he could not match Durek's raw power, so he used speed and skill. He aimed to tire the giant, to find a moment to end the fight. The crowd watched in silence as the two warriors battled. Each strike was hard and loud. The ground shook beneath their feet. Durek tried to grab Damon, but Damon slipped away. Then Damon jumped and hit Durek's arm with all his might. The giant roared in pain but kept fighting. The fight went on for minutes that felt like hours. Both men were strong, but Damon's will was stronger. He remembered why he fought, not for glory, but for peace. Finally, Durek stumbled. Damon took the chance. He moved fast and struck the giant's chest with a powerful blow. Durek fell to one knee. The crowd gasped. Damon stood over him, breathing hard. He did not raise his fist again. Instead, he reached out his hand. "End this fight," Damon said. "There is a better way." Durek looked up at Damon. For a moment, his eyes burned with anger. Then they softened. Slowly, he took Damon's hand and stood. The crowd exploded in cheers. Some warriors cried. Others shouted Damon's name. Queen Vexa stepped forward and raised Damon's hand high. "Today a human has shown us the true meaning of strength," she said. "Not just power, but control. Not just anger, but courage." She turned to the crowd. "Let this day be the day we choose peace." From that moment, Damon was named Blood Brother of the Queen. It was the highest honor Kraska could give. It meant he was not just a guest, but part of their people. After the fight, Damon sat with Vexa and Durek. "We fought to win," Durek said. "But I see now that strength is more than battle." Vexa smiled. "You are both warriors of honor." Damon looked around the hall. The faces were tired but hopeful. The future of Kraska was no longer a war to win, but a peace to build. The celebration after the final fight lasted many days. Kraskan warriors sang songs and told stories of the battle. Damon was honored as a hero, but he did not feel like one. He felt the weight of the journey still heavy on his shoulders. Queen. Vexa invited Damon to walk with her outside the palace. The sky was a deep red, with stars starting to shine above the dark mountains. The air smelled of fire and earth. "We have won a great victory," Vexa said softly. "But peace is a different kind of fight." Damon nodded. "War is simple. You face your enemy and fight. But peace takes patience. It takes trust. And sometimes it means breaking your own rules." Damon looked at her. "I never thought I would hit a woman, but I did. For peace. For life." Vexa smiled. "You taught us that mercy is not weakness. It is strength." They walked quietly for a while. Damon felt the cool breeze on his face. "Will the people accept this peace?" he asked. Vexa looked at the distant mountains. "Some will. Some will not. But we will keep trying because the future is worth it." When they returned, Damon was called to a gathering with Earth's leaders and Kraskin chiefs. Together, they signed the first peace treaty between their worlds. Damon stood beside Vexa, proud to see the hope in the room. After the ceremony, Damon spoke to Vexa privately. "I want to ask one thing," he said. "That no human on Earth ever face that test again. That no one be forced to break their rules to survive." Vexa thought for a moment. Then she nodded. "Agreed. But I have one. Rule of my own," she said. "No one will judge mercy as weakness again." Damon smiled. "Then we are partners," he said. The years that followed were not easy. Peace needed work every day. But Damon and Vexa led together. They built schools, trade routes, and friendship. They showed that strength and mercy could live side by side. One evening, Damon stood alone under the stars. He held the small stone charm Laro had given him. He thought of his mother's words and the promise he had made. He still followed his rule, not to hit women. But now he understood something more. Sometimes, protecting others means carrying pain. Sometimes, strength means breaking your own rules. But with courage, honor, and respect, peace was possible, and Damon believed the future was bright.